After being targeted by a gigantic tiger, a boy raised by wolves will have to face the greatest dangers of the jungle to escape and reach the village of the humans. Today we're going to recap the story of the 2016 movie, The Jungle Book. In the forest, a boy called Mowgli is fleeing from a large predator alongside wolves when he decides to climb a tree and escape from above. Although he gets a bit of a head start at first, he ends up stepping on a tree branch which breaks under his weight, knocking him to the ground and causing him to be caught by Bagheera, a panther who found Mowgli as a baby. Furious, the feline says that if it were a real hunt he would be devoured and advises him never to stray far from the pack, but the wolf boy doesn't take the situation seriously and says that he could have escaped if the branch hadn't broken. Bagheera then replied that the tree was dead and that the vines were a sign of this, as they sucked the water and salts from the roots, destroying the tree. After the lesson, the Black Panther takes Mowgli to be with the rest of the pack, where his father Akela and mother Ruksha have raised him for years, but as he doesn't grow or learn at the speed of the wolves, the boy still has a hard time keeping up with his canine brothers. As the days go by, the rainy season ends and the forest's rivers begin to dry up, leaving the biome more arid and revealing the Peace Rock, a rock that sits in the riverbed and signals that the water is about to dry up completely. Whenever this stone is visible, all the animals begin a period of peace in which it is forbidden to hunt along the riverbank, causing countless different species to flock to the little water that remains. With so many animals together, Mowgli is excited to go to the river and Ruksha warns him that some have never seen a man cub up close, so the boy needs to behave and be as friendly as possible. Despite his mother's warnings, the wolf boy starts collecting water with one of his inventions and scares the other animals. While getting his son's attention, Akela notices the agitated birds and, already imagining what will happen, orders Mowgli to hide behind them. At that moment, Shere Khan appears in front of everyone and approaches the water to quench his thirst, but even among so many different animals, he smells a human odor and asks what's going on. Immediately Akela says that Mowgli is part of his pack and the other wolves prepare to defend him with their lives, but Shere Khan says that he will respect the water truce and will return when the river fills up again, vowing to eliminate anyone who tries to defend the human. After a few more weeks of drought, the rain finally returns and the pack gathers to decide what to do, forcing Akela to make the difficult decision to send his son to live with the humans. Having found Mowgli, Bagheera offers to take him back and Ruksha tries to resist, but the other members of the pack know that he will only be safe with the men and allow the panther to take him. With that, the two set off on a long journey north and meet a herd of elephants in the middle of the path, revering the great mammals for supposedly having created the forest. Moving on, they finally leave the jungle and arrive in a high, dry grassland biome full of buffalo, but in the middle of the crowd, Bagheera sees something approaching and orders Mowgli to lie down. The boy refuses, thinking he's being asked to bow again, but the panther doesn't respond and keeps his eyes fixed on the grass while ordering him to run to the ravine to the north. Just then, Shere Khan emerges from the tall grass and tries to attack Mowgli, but is stopped by Bagheera, who begins to tackle him. Despite also being a big cat, the panther can't fight for long and is defeated by the tiger who starts running after the boy, only to be run over by the herd of buffalo who are also trying to escape. Taking advantage of the gap, Mowgli jumps into the ravine, which is soon overrun by bovines, forcing the wolf boy to jump onto one of the wild bulls to escape the predator. After seeing his target fleeing before his eyes, Shere Khan goes to the wolf pack and lies down next to Akela to ask why they haven't handed the boy over, as well as wanting to know where he's gone. The leader of the pack then replies that they have chosen to let Mowgli live with the humans to keep peace in the jungle, preventing unnecessary bloodshed, but Shere Khan is not at all pleased and attacks Akela, grabbing him by the neck and throwing him off the cliff, eliminating the alpha male with extreme ease. After finishing off the leader, the tiger threatens the rest of the pack, saying that from now on this is his territory and he won't leave until they bring Mowgli back. Far away, the boy is dozing on the back of a buffalo when a landslide begins to collapse on top of them, forcing him to jump into the river to avoid being hit by the avalanche of mud. In the water, Mowgli holds onto a piece of log and floats for kilometers until he reaches a safer area. Back in the forest, the wolf boy begins to wander among the trees in search of Bagheera, but the only thing he can find is the skin of a colossal snake lying on the ground. Hungry, he spots some fruit on a tree branch and uses a piece of vine to reach the food, but while he's eating, the boy ends up being surprised by a fox that approaches to distract him while two others steal the fruit. Realizing that he is being robbed, Mowgli chases the thieves to the top of a tree where he begins to hear a voice that seems to be coming from beyond. Suddenly, a gigantic snake appears in the branches and says that it will talk to him until Bagheera arrives. While talking to the boy, the snake says it knows who he is and where he came from and begins to hypnotize him with its eyes, telling him about the day a human was traveling through the jungle and stopped to camp in a cave. Because of the firelight, all the animals kept away from the men, but Shere Khan wasn't afraid and entered the cave anyway, attacking the human and having half his face burned off by the flames. During the attack, the tiger ended up eliminating the man and fled to tend to the wounds caused by the red flower, leaving Mowgli behind without realizing it. Because of the events of that day, Bagheera took the boy to live with the wolves, and everyone in the forest became absurdly afraid of the red flower, including Shere Khan himself. By the end of the story, Mowgli is totally hypnotized and doesn't even notice when the python opens its mouth to devour him. But at the last second, a bear appears and attacks the snake, knocking its lunch to the ground and making him faint. The next morning, the boy wakes up in the cave of Baloo the bear, who starts the day by asking him if he can climb. When he finds out, the overweight bear takes Mowgli out of his burrow and tells him he wants his help to reach the honey hanging from the top of a mountain. Observing the height and that thousands of bees are protecting the combs, the boy refuses to do the favor, and Baloo appeals to sentimentality, saying that winter is coming and that if he goes into hibernation hungry, he'll never wake up. Taking pity on the bear, the boy decides to accept the request and goes around the mountain, tying a piece of vine to a tree and abseiling down to reach the combs stuck in the rock, hitting them with a piece of wood and being attacked by countless bees in the process. Even with the stings, Mowgli doesn't give up on the mission and starts kicking the honey blocks, dropping them at the bear's feet, who begins to devour everything. After abseiling down, the boy begins to complain about the stings and says that he will continue his journey, but Baloo continues to ask for help in gathering food for the winter. Wanting to do as Bagheera asked, Mowgli refuses to help the bear and says he has to get to the human village before the tiger catches up with him, revealing that Baloo realizes he is being chased by a predator. Afterwards, Baloo finally decides that he will guide the boy to his goal, accompanying him through the forest until they reach the outside of the village. There they talk about what it must be like to live with men, and Baloo begins to tease the boy, saying that what he has done with the honeycombs is impressive. Finally, the bear says that Mowgli doesn't have to live as a human or a wolf, promising that if he stays by his side, he will always be free to be whoever he wants to be. Convinced, the wolf boy returns to the jungle and spends his days helping Baloo get more and more honey, developing new tools and perfecting his abseiling technique, cutting one block after another with the protection of a suit of leaves. After a busy day at work, the two go for a swim in the river when Mowgli notices a movement in the foliage and warns the gluttonous bear, who comes out of the water, approaches the possible predator and orders it to reveal itself. At that moment, Bagheera comes out of the woods and calls the boy to continue their journey, but before they go any further, Mowgli asks him to show him his newest creation and guides him to the cave. Seeing the huge amount of honey they have accumulated, the panther is furious with Baloo and accuses him of emotionally blackmailing Mowgli to get food without effort. Angrily, Bagheera calls the boy to continue their journey, and Baloo manages to convince him to wait until dawn, wanting to spend some more time with him. In the middle of the night, Mowgli wakes up to elephant sounds and decides to go out to investigate, finding countless animals around the crater where a calf is stuck. To save him, the boy runs back to the cave and grabs some vines to tie to the mini elephant, handing the other end of the rope to the adults to pull. In this way, they manage to untangle the calf, and Mowgli befriends the largest land mammals on the planet, leaving Bagheera and Baloo amazed at what he can do with his inventions. Nevertheless, the panther stands by his decision to take him to the village and explains that it is Shere Khan who is after him, making the bear finally understand why he is so worried. Even so, Baloo says that Akela can defend him, and the feline reveals that he has already been eliminated by the tiger, convincing the bear that the best option for Mowgli is to live with humans and away from danger. Knowing the risk the boy is taking, the bear goes to him and tells him that it's time they split up, advising him to go to the men's village. Mowgli then says that he wants to be with him and that he considers him his best friend, forcing Baloo to lie and say that he doesn't like him and that he was just taking advantage of him to get some honey. Finally, the bear says he doesn't need him anymore and kicks him out of his territory, causing the boy to run to the top of a tree, visibly upset. Sitting on a branch, Mowgli is visited by a small albino monkey who beeps and calls several other monkeys, who grab him by the arm, carrying him through the trees and throwing him from one side to the other. Hearing the boy's cries, Baloo and Bagheera chase the monkeys until they reach the foot of an extremely steep mountain, forcing the bear to try to climb the rocks even though he's never done it before. While his guardians make their way up the mountain, Mowgli is taken to an apparently abandoned temple full of fruit and some human junk. Finding everything very strange, the boy starts to look around when a gigantic orangutan hand stretches out from his side. Hidden in the shadows, the great primate introduces himself as King Louie and says that he can protect him from Shere Khan and any other danger in the jungle, but that he must pay for the protection by revealing how humans control the red flower. Mowgli then says that he doesn't know how to make fire and asks to leave, but the king of the primates insists that he is hiding something and that he needs the red flower to become a human. Frightened, Mowgli says he doesn't want to make a deal and asks to leave once again, which leaves the king very agitated. At this point, Baloo finally arrives at the ancient ruins and does everything he can to distract Louie while Bagheera takes the boy outside without anyone noticing. However, just as they are about to leave, one of the monkeys catches sight of them and alerts the king Louie about the escape, setting off a huge chase outside the temple. Even against hundreds of monkeys, Baloo and Bagheera order Mowgli to go ahead while they stay to fight, but Louie won't allow the boy to escape and gets up from his throne to corner him. With no way out, the wolf boy asks the orangutan to leave him alone and says that he will return to the pack to stay under Akela's protection, prompting the king of the primates to reveal that the wolf has been defeated. Incredulous, Mowgli runs up the steps of the temple while Louie chases after him, but because of his colossal size, the ape ends up destroying the pillars that support the building, causing everything to collapse just as Mowgli jumps out. Not knowing what had happened, Bagheera and Baloo saw the building giving way and ran to look for the boy, finding it safe and sound at the top of a tree. As the two try to get closer, Mowgli asks if it's true that Akela was eliminated and the panther confirms it, making him so furious that he decides to go to the City of Men. There, the boy goes into stealth mode and approaches the central bonfire to pick the red flower, but ends up getting scared when he sees the size of the fire and decides to take one of the torches that light up the city streets. With the object in hand, he spends the night running through the jungle while Baloo and Bagheera search for his tracks, but in the middle of the journey, Mowgli ends up knocking over some small embers that start a fire in the forest. Without realizing what he has done, the wolf boy keeps running until he finds all the animals around the river. As soon as he arrives at the place, Mowgli challenges Shere Khan to a fight and says that no one will be afraid of him anymore, but the villain argues that now everyone is afraid of the red flower in his hands, encouraging him to use fire and saying that he has always known that this is the essence of humans. Wanting to prove the tiger wrong, Mowgli throws the torch into the water and Shere Khan tells him how stupid that was as he proceeds to finish him off, forcing the other animals to get into the fight to defend him. Even outnumbered, the tiger feels no fear and lunges at the boy, only to be stopped by Baloo, who begins to fight him. Although the fight is well balanced, the bear is not as good a predator as Shere Khan and ends up being defeated, forcing the wolves to take over the fight instead. Together with the pack, Mowgli advances towards the enemy until Bagheera stops him to tell him that he must fight like a human, asking him to stay out of the fight and use the terrain to his advantage. Even alone against more than 10 wolves, Shere Khan manages to see Mowgli fleeing and drops the wolves to go after the boy, forcing Bagheera to chase the villain. Extremely fast, the panther manages to catch up with the tiger and starts an insane fight between two of the world's biggest cats, where even from below, Bagheera manages to deliver countless blows capable of scratching Shere Khan. Even so, the villain manages to outdo himself and knocks down the panther, who is saved by the wolves for the second time. While everyone is busy fighting, Mowgli arrives in the part of the forest that is on fire and sees a tree with vines, remembering Bagheera's lessons and deciding to use the dead branches to eliminate the tiger. Taking advantage of Shere Khan's absent-mindedness, the boy starts hitting one stone against another until he gets a sharp splinter, climbing the tree to cut the vines and wrapping the vine around his shoulders. A few meters away, Shere Khan defeats the wolves for the second time and climbs the tree after his prey. Alone in the 1 versus 1, Mowgli lures the tiger to the weakest branches in an attempt to make it fall, but the feline isn't stupid and climbs down the tree to the next, safer branch. Realizing that this won't work, the boy climbs the highest trunk and ties the vine to one of the branches, setting up a kind of swing that hangs down while he continues climbing inside the tree. With a thirst for blood, Shere Khan goes higher and higher after Mowgli, who is trapped in a rotten branch. Realizing how fragile the wood is, the tiger stops in a safe place and decides to appeal to the sentimental, talking about Akela and making the boy turn around to face him. When he realizes that he has managed to make Mowgli stop, the tiger decides to go ahead and jumps towards the wolf boy, who escapes by jumping on the makeshift swing practically destroyed. The tree is unable to bear Shere Khan's weight and the branch breaks in two, knocking the big cat down from a height of more than 10 meters right into the fire. Hanging from the swing, Mowgli breathes a sigh of relief and climbs back up the vine, coming down from the trunk and finding the same herd of elephants he helped the night before. As a way of returning the favor, the large herbivores cut down the dead trees and use the wood to build a dam in the river, blocking the current and redirecting the water to put out the forest fire. With that, everyone is safe and sound and Mowgli can finally go back to living in the jungle, but unlike before, now he is no longer a man-cub but a legitimate member of the pack. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you like the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.